Um, so you're so you're welcome to keep doing that. We have a pretty full meeting today, so in order to keep us on track, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, and people can keep popping in. So we just want to take a moment again to welcome you all. I want to give you a quick overview of today's meeting. As I said, it's going to be pretty packed. You're going to have an opportunity to provide feedback on the bylaws, as Gordon was just mentioning, some questions around that. There was lots of work that was done on those this summer, and we do just want to provide a shout out to all of you who did participate in that and took time from your lovely summer. I know I feel like summer has passed by way too quickly. Our hope is to get through those today so we can actually forward them to the full alliance to review and approve, which will take place at our quarterly meeting. And in order to meet that need, you may have noticed that we've added a half an hour to today's meeting. So we really appreciate your willingness to be able to stay as long as you can today so we can navigate that. If we don't get through the bylaws today, we will need to set up an additional special meeting for the executive. Just for reference, we don't have meeting minutes to review today, so that'll save us a little bit of time. And we've included a calendar of key tasks below today's agenda to help orient everyone to kind of what our work looks like moving forward. I know Annette sent out a beautiful email from all of us in leadership to just kind of give everyone a clue and insight into some of the conclusions that we've gained together for what that work looks like. In September, along with our hope of having the bylaws approved, we'll also plan to vote in new executive members along with getting our committee meetings up and going again. So that's amazing news. And for all of our voting members, Jill will be sending out letters soon, which will outline the new training requirements for membership. You'll also see those in the bylaws. So if that's something new, that's why it's just come to light. But before we move into too much business, we want to acknowledge the steady and inspiring leadership of our very own Gallie Murray, who's sitting in this space with us today, who has served as our chair for 2 terms. So, really stepping to the plate and dedicating a lot of your time. Thank you, Gallie, for a total of 4 years. Really, a period that we've had engagement in which the Alliance has grown. We've had numerous legislative successes and have seen new investment and energy in the field of suicide prevention across the state. So just want to say thank you, Gallie, for your service. We're really glad that you remain so committed to being an active part of our Alliance community. I know I definitely have some big shoes to fill. So just want to take a moment, let anyone that would like to unmute or pop something in the chat um, speak to Gallie if you'd like. I just really honor everything you've given, and I know everyone sitting in this room does. And there's just not a big enough way to celebrate all that you have put into this via Zoom. So yeah, I see the really great comments coming in. So just hope that there's some way that you know how appreciated you are, because you truly are.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Gallie? Not to put you on the spot, but
I think I wasn't prepared to really say anything, but I think I just, this work doesn't happen without all of you. And we've gone through some big things over the last year and few years, lots of successes, lots of wins, lots of morphing as we continue to expand the work of suicide prevention in the state of Oregon. So just really proud of the work that we all have done, and really recognizing that we do that in community, and that's how stuff happens. So just appreciate you all and your continued commitment to showing up for these meetings and showing up for this work, because that's what makes a big difference.
thank you, Gallie. I knew you would have amazing words to share. You always do. It's one of the beautiful things about your leadership. So thank you so much. As I said, I have some big shoes to fill. With me transitioning to the chair position, I really want you all to know that your wisdom, your expertise, your opinions, your voices, all of those things are really important and essential to everything we do. And I would love to invite you to email me with any thoughts or comments, reach out, whatever that looks like. I really want to know what you envision or what you would specifically like to ask of me as I'm serving in this role. I know we don't have lots of time to dive into that today, but I just wanted to open that up and let you know that it is really important to me to know how I can best sit in this space together with you. So don't hesitate to reach out and send me information. I would love to see it and hear it and connect with you. Of course, with all of that means now we're going to need a new co-chair for the alliance. So if there's someone interested in nominating an individual for the co-chair, the requirement is that you have served at least 1 year on one of the alliance committees. And of course, you can also self-nominate. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. We already do have one nomination. So we'll review that and again, just invite others to nominate themselves or someone else as well if you're interested. We also have several executive positions that are open. So again, we'll be reviewing those candidates later, along with the ones that have already been nominated. As we adopt in the new bylaws, it will also be a good time to kind of reopen the idea of position opportunities to all of our voting members who may be interested. So again, we're going to chat about that in just a moment. Does anyone have questions so far? Lots coming at you this morning. It's going to be a full meeting. Oh, yeah, I'm good at that awkward virtual pause. Too many virtual trainings. All right, so we are briefly going to share our goal of setting, what we're looking for our work to continue. And Annette's going to share the language a little bit around what we shared in the email, and also she'll open up any questions, thoughts about messaging. So we're going to review the draft of the bylaws, invite questions, comments, or edits as we proceed, and at the end of the review we'll be looking for a motion to move the bylaws forward for a vote by the full alliance. So with all of that, Annette, can you provide an overview for us?
Well,
Jen, if you don't mind taking some notes for the suggested changes, that would be awesome.
I think rather than doing an overview in detail of the email, you all received an email from the four of us on, oh my God, I think it was yesterday um, that you got it. And it's really an attempt on our part to kind of reset a tone for the alliance. So many of our last meetings have been confusing and fraught and transitional and sort of trying to understand change. And I feel like we are at a really important kind of inflection point for the alliance where we have an opportunity to step into kind of our next phase of life and to do it in a positive way. Um, and at the same time, don't ever want people to feel like we're not being real with each other about how we're moving forward. And so I guess I just wanted to, a couple of you sent me notes saying that email was helpful, wondering if you have any thoughts about an email that goes out to our entire listserv, sort of to if that content seemed on track to you, or if there's anything else you would want to be addressed in an email that went out to the entire alliance. And this was the email where we said, we reflect, here's where we are. This is a status update, how things are moving along.
Did everyone get a chance to review the email? No, there wasn't a large time gap between receiving it and today. Okay, see some thumbs up coming through. Was sent out on the 4th. Thank you for the reminder, Jill. A day before yesterday, Annette.
Hey. Okay.
Any questions? This is the time to open that up, as Annette's asking.
And one of the things that we're wondering is if that's something that you think would be helpful for the whole Alliance membership to receive an email like that, not just the executive. And so I guess asking how it landed and how it felt and whether or not it would be appropriate or a good move to send it to everyone.
And I think I will take if we're not hearing feedback, because I did get email feedback from people saying they found it helpful and just would want if there was a concern at all. I would think sending it out to the entire alliance, it could be from the leadership and the executive, and just being sure that we get everybody on the same page.
I like the idea of sending it out to the full alliance. I think one of the things that we've been really good at is transparency and communication, at least trying to be good at those things. So I think this would be consistent with that continued goal in mind.
Great. I think that's all we had on that one.
That is all we had on that one. I kind of presented two things at a time, so I'm super sorry about that. So Jen or Annette, you still get to go because now you get to provide an overview of the bylaws. And Jen, can you please note any suggested changes for this section?
And with that, with the bylaws, I just wanted to, so the bylaws that I'm pulling from are the ones that Annette sent out last week. This is the title of the email that was sent out. It was sent out August 8th, we're not sent out yet, August 30th at 4:52 p.m. And the attached bylaws are titled, use this one, Alliance Bylaw Edits with Track Changes, Draft 8/29/24 version 3. So when we pull those up, that's what we'll be going off of. And that email also has a summary, high-level summary of changes to the bylaws.
Jen, are you interested in possibly just dropping the document in the chat so individuals can access it?
I will. Can I do?
While she does it, I'll share my screen. And what I'm going to do is not go detail through detail, but through the bylaws, but do the high level overview of what has changed. And then I believe we're going to pause and see if there's feedback at that level, and then move into the document itself.
I'd like to make a statement. The email that the bylaws that went out a week ago are not very, but they are different than the bylaws that went out 2 days ago. The bylaws that went out 2 days ago have things in it that changed. And I would hope that we would work off of the current bylaws as written and up for approval.
Annette, you and Jill were the ones I think that worked on the bylaws most recently. Do you know which one happens to be the most recent? If they are different?
Gordon, can you name the date, time, and email title of the email that went out 2 days ago that you're saying is different than went out in prep for this meeting?
Yeah, it is September 4th at 9:38 a.m.
It's titled Executive Meeting Friday, September 6th, Bylaw Review.
Yes, and it starts good day.
And that is different than which one?
Than the one that was sent out after the August 29th meeting.
I see an August 30th email from Annette.
Let me just look real quickly. I'm so sorry for this confusion.
They both have the same title on the Word document. So I just putting that out there. The titles are the same for the Word docs.
I know what I sent on Friday, I believe, was what we had worked on that week.
Can you
let's,
give an example of like one or two, not all of them, but just like one or two changes that you say are different from the one on Wednesday versus last Friday, Gordon?
Can I interrupt for a minute? I'm wondering if we can just use the one that was sent out to everyone on the 6th, since that's what everyone received. Would that seem appropriate?
I think
Well,
everybody received both of them.
it's, I would hope we'd do the most recent because that's how it's, anyway.
It would be helpful, Gordon, if you could name a difference that you see. Thank you for bringing this up. The
I'll tell you, in the document that went out a week ago or so,
uh-huh.
on the way it's paginated for me is on page 5, under Alliance members' expectations, the second major bullet has been added, which is within the months of a, I'm having trouble reading the red. Within 6 months of appointment, complete the following Department of Administrative Services online courses.
Mm-hmm.
Got 3 bullets under that. And that was not in the previous email. And I think
I-
that
I see that on my document from the one for last Friday.
yeah, that's the one we should use, is the one from Friday. It has just
Yeah.
a couple of minor, had a couple of minor changes in it.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion, Charlotte? I think since we're going to be going, since Annette's going to be taking us through the changes that have been made, the suggested changes that have been made in the bylaws, Gordon, I think it'll catch any of the concerns that you have. And so we'll talk about those as they come up in the section that it's in. So what I'm hearing from you, Gordon, is you're saying that there's some discrepancies between one document or the other, but let's use the most recent document that people have. And Annette was going to take us through step by step of what the high level changes are.
was the one that was sent out 2 days ago.
No,
Yeah, let me just do,
it's
before we're even in the bylaws, I was just gonna talk about the substance of what the changes were, which I think before we get into like, yeah, specific words and bullet points would be helpful to do that.
well,
Yeah,
I
let's go ahead and
attached the
do
one.
that. I agree with what you're saying, Gelly. If you don't mind holding for a little bit, Gordon, and just, obviously, as Gelly said, if there's sections where you think we're missing something, you can let us know. That would be super helpful so we can start working through this.
And it's in the chat. The one that we're working off of today for the meeting is in the chat.
And the most recent,
And if it helps,
I understand, Gordon, but it's the
I
one
just ran
from last Friday that was sent out, that we have in the chat that we'll be going off of for right now.
And if it helps, I just ran a compare for both of those documents in Microsoft Word, assuming all the track changes are accepted, and it found no differences between the documents.
Yeah, cool, sweet.
well,
Okay.
Okay, Annette, did you
All
We're
want
gonna
to
go ahead and move
high-level
forward,
overviews?
Gordon, so we can make it through these. Please feel free to bring any ideas up during the particular sections. Thank you so much.
All right. So just the overview. First, there's changes in the bylaws around membership and stipends. We've clarified some of the membership requirements, and the biggest changes really are around reviewing specific OHA policies regarding workplace discrimination, public records, and private security. Jill?
Annette, you're not sharing screen, and you made a beautiful PowerPoint with these, so it'd be helpful to be able to see it.
It's not sharing. Oh, I am so glad you told me that, Jill. Is it sharing now?
Yep, we can see it.
I love it when I'm reading off of a PowerPoint and no one can see it. All right, so anyhow, membership requirements. 3 or 4 quarterlies, review specific OHA policies. So these are things that Department of Justice has clarified that all advisory groups need to be complying with. And they are some rules around professional workplace discrimination, public records, and privacy and security. Those will be things that folks just will be sent and have an opportunity to read. I think the biggest change will be that there are 3 online trainings that are provided through the state that everybody on advisory committees is required to take within the first 6 months of their membership. Obviously, we're going to be setting a start for this after our September meeting. The next area of change, and those what I will say about those ones is those are ones that are all Department of Justice. The language we have in there is Department of Justice approved and is in compliance with the other advisory groups. Jill?
Just want to name that the 3 trainings by how much they have projected time will take is a total of 2 hours and 40 minutes, and that's based on a certain like reading level and reading speed. And that's so depending on people's ability, it's likely that it would be under 3 hours. And maybe even faster than that, and that time can be, if folks are eligible for a stipend, that's a stipendable activity to get paid for taking those training times.
Thanks, Jill. I appreciate these clarifications as we go along. The next kind of high level piece of work was around how do you handle appointments and resignations to the Alliance? And the executive has authority to make recommendations about appointments and removals, and may do that based on not meeting member expectations, which are outlined. Jill?
Thank you for your grace, Annette. One of the things that you will see in the bylaws, draft bylaws that Jen put in the chat, is that we were waiting for answer from Department of Justice on executive session. So the executive subcommittee can call a special meeting, which is just like another executive subcommittee meeting open to the public, or they can name that they want to go into executive session, which has kind of more guarded rules around privacy and confidentiality. And DOJ said that that by her, DOJ is her, DOJ is gendered. By her eye, that an advisory committee, executive committee wouldn't be able to discuss anything other than kind of the member expectations that are met, didn't meet attendance requirements, didn't finish the training, those types of things, and that would not qualify for executive session. If it was something about discrimination or harassment, that it would go through the discrimination and harassment policy. So that is different than what is currently written in there. That advice came in this morning.
Okay. So just to be clear, it sounds like we'll be removing language about using an executive session to discuss removal of a member, because what has become clear is that issues around harassment, equity, and discrimination, there's an official process because we're a state appointed group that you need to be part of. Is that right, Jill?
Yeah, so the process would be to initiate that, make a report of a complaint and initiate that process.
Okay,
and that's
great.
not a small thing, and not what our work group. So I'm going to name that. If we want to take a pause and make sure that people understand that piece, that's one of the biggest things that we need to slow down and make sure we're on the same page about.
Jill, can you clarify again what it is that or Annette, one of you, just because I think I got lost in that conversation a bit.
On page 4, and I can share, I'll maybe share screen. Can somebody let me do that?
with that, Jill, too, when you say the page numbers, are you, can you let folks know if you have track changes on or off? Because that changes
Oh,
the page numbers.
I have, it is a clean copy. So under, when you go to review, I have it on simple markup. So there's not the chaos of what got crossed out on it.
And Jill, I do want to let you be able to share.
I think I made Jill co-host. I think
You did,
she
good.
did, yeah.
Just waiting for my computer to load my screens.
If you need me to pull it up, Jill, I have the bylaws up. I can see if it'll go.
Okay, why don't you do it? Because it's not, it's literally not loading, so.
Okay, let me go back to here and then we'll go here.
Hi,
Right.
Ruth.
I talked, oh, she said up, so now I'm having to hold her in the chair position with my arm while she sits here like this. So that's what this is.
Mama ninjas. Okay, go down to
Page
page
4.
4. And then if you can zoom in a little bit under procedure for recommending removal of membership, where that comment is waiting for DOJ. So we had the work group had and Lois or Gordon or John or somebody else who was in the work group, if I'm misrepresenting what, or Gally, if misrepresenting what we thought we wanted in there, that we had delineated kind of if it's about if there's a recommended removal for not meeting member expectations, and that list includes attending 3 out of 4 quarterly meetings, the trainings that need to happen, and following the guidelines for harassment and discrimination, among the other things that we've always had in the bylaws about like paying attention to the YSIP and caring about youth suicide prevention. We had created a process to be able to, in executive session, having this executive subcommittee being able to review. Gally Murray is being recommended to be removed from membership because she has only attended 1 quarterly meeting. Staff reached out to her. She agrees that it's time to sunset her membership for, and to have that be in executive session so that if there was anything kind of prickly or related to harassment, discrimination, that could happen in a closed, not public meeting way for confidentiality. And DOJ came back, and so that's that comment that's right there that essentially said that the executive committee, based on the definition of what is allowed in executive session, in that closed session, discussing member removal for recommendations not on the list of what's allowed for executive session, and therefore my recommendation is that we remove the sentence that says in executive or the part of the sentence that says in an executive session, and just keep the executive subcommittee will review the recommendation and vote whether to submit it to the coordinator. And anytime you see coordinator, that's me.
That makes sense.
I agree that it makes sense. Can you please restate which part of the sentence that you want me to remove?
What you have highlighted right now, where it says in executive session, and the word "the" should be capitalized instead of.
Okay, cool.
And I want to pause and make sure that there aren't questions about that before we actually make those edits, please.
Sandy has her hand up. Did you have a question, Sandy?
This is just a very minor thing, but I think I'm confused, and so I want to make sure that it gets clarified. In the second bullet point, it refers to the coordinator notifying the director of whatever the recommendation is in that section. I'm assuming that means who's the director? Would that be the OHA director? Would that be behavioral health director? Who would that be?
It's the OHA director. So in statute, it gives authority to the OHA direct, and I am the coordinator. So the coordinator is my position. The director is currently Sejal Hathi, but the director of OHA.
And
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
earlier in the bylaws, we kind of do that defining thingy with the parentheses, but I think that it was a suggestion to have OHA director in front of all of the directors through that, so I can add that so it's clear in the document moving forward.
All right. Um, is it more helpful for people to see the document? Should I read the PowerPoint to you guys, read the highlights to you? Or do we want to go back to the PowerPoint for a minute and then come back to the document if there's a question?
I would like to see the PowerPoint and come back to the document as questions
Okay.
come up, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. And did I successfully share my screen?
Yeah.
You did, yes.
Yay. Okay. This next one is stipends. It's just clarifying who can receive stipends, which is voting members can receive stipends, and it is a clarification about the kinds of activities that you can receive a stipend for. And that's clarification that OHA has done for everyone. Jill.
I don't think I would have this many comments all the way through this for the record, but this one I also have a comment on. So if folks are qualified members, so qualified means that you're within a certain income range and that you're not being compensated elsewhere for the work. Folks can receive up to I think it's $66 right now, $166 in a stipend for each day of work on any advisory committee. And so this clarification came down that so only letter holding appointed members will be able to receive stipends through that process. I would like to note that when we looked at that through the lens of equity and getting community voice and lived experience voice, we talked through that we, in our contracting for next biennium, we need to make sure we put in gift cards and stipends and the ability to pay people for feedback and work that are not letter holding members of the Alliance Advisory. And so there wasn't a way we tried wherever we could to kind of memorialize all of that so that it's in writing and not like for accountability for OHA to do that. And that's not something that we could put into the bylaws piece of it, but just as a note, the contract that OHA holds with AOSAMHP for this work is available for the executive or anyone to look at. It's public. And so it could be a good strategy to put that on agendas, Charlotte, for review to just accountability to make me report out on whether or not that happened.
So you're asking, just to clarify, to have it on the agenda for review in regards to extending stipends to all who are potentially doing work through the Alliance.
Yeah. So,
Okay, thanks.
and I would put that maybe on like April or May's agenda for 2025. That would be good timing.
Okay. We'll catch that. All right.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Please.
All right, great. What exactly do you mean by letter holding members?
So OHA's director is the only person who can appoint somebody to the Alliance or advisory committee. The Alliance forwards recommendations for who you all want OHA's director to appoint to this committee. And by committee, I'm using like the full Alliance. That's the way I'm using committee. And so OHA's director then decides whether or not to accept those recommendations. There has not been a time in the history of this committee where OHA's director didn't follow the recommendations of the committee. But technically she could say, actually, I want this person to be on this committee. So she could add or delete based from the recommendations. and then those appointed members get a letter from OHA that says you have been appointed to. And so when Jen puts up the list of who can vote in meetings, those are the letter carrying members. And we don't use that term I literally just made it up. So like, so I can not use that term if it's not helpful in the future too.
Oh, yeah, thank you for the clarification.
All right. So continuing discussion of membership, oh no, sorry, but on to the next slide. I'm looking at too many pieces of, all right, so another thing we did not have in our bylaws really was clear terms for the executive positions, other than for chair. So in the new bylaws, chair continues to serve for 2 years, vice chair for two years, and ideally we ought to be moving ourselves into a era, which I think we can be now, where they are the terms are staggered, so that as a vice chair goes off, as a vice chair transitions up to become a chair, they can turn into the vice we can then vote on a new vice chair.
Can I clarify, Annette, did this get adjusted to reflect what we talked about? Is it an official 2 years per position, or is it still the crossover? So 1 year each? That's something we had talked about fixing.
It's right now it says 2 years each per
So it is,
position.
okay. Okay.
So is that feedback, Charlotte? I didn't catch that if it was that we need to clarify that they are on a that it's staggered.
We did talk about that in our meeting of really being intentionally calling out that the
Okay.
co-chair and chair are two terms each. However, after year number 1, the co-chair will step into the chair role. Right? We talked about,
Yes.
no, sorry, 2 year, right.
Well, I think Annette had thrown the option out there for the chair to potentially stay
Stay
in for a
on,
full 2
right.
years.
Right.
But that would be
Right.
different than what the current rotation has been. And so either way, we had talked about clarifying what that was going to look like. Right now, it looks like you're in each role for 2 years when it sits like that, as opposed to the transition. So I do think it's helpful if we have language to clarify whatever decision is made around that, so that people who are transitioning understand that, and they don't have a freak out moment like Charlotte did when it was like, oh, Gally's dead. What? About. So
all right.
Happy to be here with you all, but I do think it's very helpful to have that clarifying information.
I think that's then we should add that as a question for the group is does the group want it to be, a total of 4 years? I think or that we're staggering the intention is for a vice chair to serve for a year and then oh yeah, you're right. We did go around about that.
Yeah. Jill, what do you remember about this?
We went around. My recollection is that we wanted stability in leadership, and so the 2 years feeding into 2 years made more sense. And that when I read through it, so this would be good for hive mind as well. When I read through it, that's what it said. It looked to me like it said, and I even made a little chart, which is now wrinkled because I threw it away. It makes sense that Gally should have been co-chair under David Westbrook for 2 years and then become chair for 2 years. Charlotte is co-chair with Gally for 2 years. This is what should have and then what is chair for 2 years. We're voting in a new co-chair who's going to co-chair for 2 years and then lead for 2 years. So And the way I read the bylaws, that's what it said to me. But that one of the things that we've learned through this process is that words communicate different things. So maybe it would be helpful, Annette, to pull up the bylaws again, or
Yeah,
Jen.
I think
And I
I-
do think it currently is stating that it says 2 years each, but that hadn't matched up with what was happening.
How
So
we were
that's where we
operating.
were trying to clarify what that process was going to be moving forward. If that is what's happening, then I think it's fine to have it sit there that way. But if it's going to happen the way that it has in the past, we would need to adjust it.
Also, folks, in the bylaws, does it actually say, I can't remember, does it say that the co-chair will automatically turn into the chair?
I just caught that yesterday, that that's not in there. So that may be something we want to add in there.
I mean, and that's also up to the group. I mean, is that up? That might be up for discussion. Like, do the co-chair serves for 2 years and then a nomination for chair has to occur? And ideally it would be the co-chair for continuity. But also you all get to vote on this too. So I guess one question for the group is, does it make sense to leave it as the bylaws read right now, which is 2 years co-chair, 2 years chair? Or do we need to be intentionally calling out that the co-chair actually rolls into, so essentially if you're voted in as co-chair, you are also being voted in as chair after your 2-year term expires?
Can I say my concern if we did it differently than that? As I know, as someone who is sitting in the co-chair position, I personally feel like you need that time to prepare to be a chair. So I just wanted to put that out there as some food for thought. I think it would be fairly difficult to just jump into being the chair without a co-chair experience.
Can we look at the bylaws as it's stated? So we can write it the way we want.
And Justin put in the chat that as a recommendation to spell it out completely.
Yeah.
Pulling up the things, I'm just gonna try and find it on the pages so you don't have to watch me search. So if you could just give me a
Yeah,
moment.
just for clarity, like you could even add the language that you used here, which was in order to promote stability and leadership. Just so it's abundantly clear to anybody that reads that.
Yeah.
And I like your latter version, Gal.
And I would include maybe a clause, though, that if that co-chair, if there is a vacation of the co-chair, like the co-chair steps down for some reason, that we would, the committee would be able to vote a replacement chair and co-chair in the process.
Oh, that's an important point, Justin.
Which has happened, folks. So remember,
Yes.
Ryan Price was in the co-chair position and had to step down just because his AFSP responsibilities were really significant. So so that has happened. Yeah.
If that
Yeah,
good
you
point
could
was needed
state
to be
something like
captured in
in the
notes, I
event
was not
that-
able to hear Justin. So if somebody could either put it in the chat or let me know, I can capture that.
I'll throw in the chat. Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
I also, again, not to further complicate things, folks, but I guess, is there, and Jill, this would probably be a question more for you all, is there a mechanism for removing, I'm just thinking, so if there's a person in the co-chair role and the bylaws are written as such that the expectation for continuity and stability is that the co-chair automatically transitions into the chair role, do we want to have a mechanism in place that if for some reason the co-chair is not up to snuff after those 2 years to step into the chair role, do we need to have a mechanism in place to not have that person automatically roll into the chair role or step into the chair role? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think if we're asking the question, we need to probably have it in place.
I mean, I
And
think also what you have to consider with that is if that's the situation, you would also have a chair that's potentially extending past their 2 years. So I think that
Or
um,
two people starting out like fresh, right? If the one person's like, I can't go past 2 years, then we would need to have a brand new chair and a brand new co-chair.
Right.
So that would be like a
I
whole.
will say
fresh-
again, though, and I don't know how you felt, Gally, feel free to speak up. I feel like there's some form of necessity of sitting in a co-chair role in order to really grasp. I mean, if we're talking about not moving a co-chair forward into the chair role, that is that potential time where someone is grasping something and you're saying, okay, that's not going to work. Then just asking someone who hasn't experienced that co-chair role to all of a sudden step into a chair role is not equitable or fair to the person. So just thinking about that out loud.
Well,
Can I just ask Jen to scroll down a second? Yeah, for this top. So the way we have it worded is the chair and vice chair terms will typically be for a period of 2 years,
typically, right.
pending membership appointment by the director. Because the other piece that is different than the rest of the executive is is that the director, the full alliance votes to make the recommendation and the director appoints the chair and co-chair. And I don't know if that is that was not necessarily DOJ's recommendation, like that's not how it has to be for the record. Like the director doesn't have to like the executive committee and the full alliance can elect their own chair and co-chair. We have it going to the director and we don't necessarily have to.
I thought we took out it going to the director for the chair and the co-chair. I thought we had taken this out because
That should be.
That was
pulled.
in the executive elected positions part. So
Yes.
it sounds like we missed it here.
Yeah. I think walking through the conversation, Charlotte, you and I are having, I think it's up to you all as a group, what, so worst case scenario is that there's a person in the co-chair position who, for whatever reason, should not be moving forward to be in the position of chair and is asked to step down, or I don't know how that's a whole other thing. Like how, well, I guess if we're stating that if it's not in the bylaws that the co-chair automatically rolls into the chair position, then that person's term would just expire and not step into the chair position. But your point, though, Charlotte, of having a brand new person come in is a valid one. And I think it would not be easy in any way at all, but I think it's doable. It would not be easy, but it would be because assuming it would be somebody in this group. Most likely, it would be someone who's already been in a position of leadership, most likely, who would be probably nominated for a chair role.
Yeah. So we have a couple, thank you, Gally, for adding that. Appreciate that. We have a couple other suggestions. I just want to make sure that the group is hearing. So Justin stated maybe phrasing it similar to in the event the current co-chair resigns or is removed under seat removal section prior, because that's already in there. To assuming the chair role, the alliance will nominate and appoint a replacement co-chair. Michelle made a suggestion to consider to make sure that any chair has the experience as a co-chair. If a vice chair is not becoming chair, consider asking the most recent chair or any previous, if not available, to serve the chair role for another year. And then Jill, I see you have your hand up.
I just want to name that it seems really likely, like in case folks are starting to feel stressed or anxious about time, it seems really likely to me that like this is incredibly helpful. And one thing that was useful as we did the editing over the summer was to get the concepts, like get agreement on what do we want it to say? And then have the Alliance staff and OHA staff do a pass at it and then bring it back. So I just want to name that that's how I see this playing out is getting broads, like the suggestions are good and broad concepts are good. But if we have clarity and direction from you all about what you want your bylaws to say, then we can go and take a pass at wording. It will mean that we would need another meeting prior to September 27th. Which I think where we're at anyway, because given the amount of edits that we've already talked through.
And with that, I'm just gonna put the doodle poll in the chat right now so that way people can complete it. So that way it's just done. And then if we need the meeting, I'll get it scheduled after this is done. So the doodle will show up momentarily.
And per the control of the different versions, I think this next version we can send out looking like this. We don't have to send all the track changes to you, et cetera. We'll get it so it's a clean version for you to be looking at.
And just in case you want to know, like you want to see all the track changes and you're not sure, just like Jill said, you go to review and then under over here where it says simple markup, you just click all and then the madness shows up. So that will be where that is. But like Annette said, we'll just send it out as simple so that way you don't have to see the madness. But if you wanted to, you have the option.
Do we want to give everyone a moment to do that just so everyone can focus back where we need them to be putting their beautiful brains? So once that's in, maybe we can just give a moment for everyone to do that so that we can refocus on following the bylaw outline that Annette so graciously put together and also graciously is allowing us to consistently ask questions. So thank you. All right, looks like Jen has it up. Let's go ahead and take a minute or so to fill that in so that we can all get it done, which will be helpful in order to continue moving forward this. So if it's something you're able to do, and then we can go ahead and move back into the presentation with Annette. Did you have a question, Annette?
Yeah, I just have a thought, Charlotte, but while people are looking at the doodle poll, I'm just knowing that some people are going to have to not stay on for the whole time. And I want to be sure if there are any high level issues, if people have already reviewed the bylaws and they have things that they know for sure they want to provide feedback on, that we do capture that today. So I guess I have that I just want to put that question out there to you. Like, as I'm walking through these changes, I just maybe would invite if there's something in addition to the changes we highlighted, we made that somebody has a comment, they want to be sure we're capturing that, and you have to leave early, please get that to us now or put it in the chat. I'm having a forest in the trees moment. I want to be sure that we don't lose the big picture for getting into the very detailed pieces.
On this new document that's coming out with the revised bylaws, I would hope the bylaws, you're saying clean out all of the red and blue, but I hope the bylaws that we get next have the changes in them noted that from the June or the September 6th version, because that's a hard thing, is figuring out what you changed.
Yeah,
Okay.
the document will just, yes, it'll all be perfectly up to date. The one that's sent out after today, I'll just send it out right away. Everybody will see it. It will have all the things. It will be dated today. We'll just be using that one moving forward for any changes.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone need more time to do the doodle? There was only a couple of dates. It looked like.
It looks like so far we have load faster. There's people waiting. We have 6 people who completed it so far. And so far the winning date is that is September 12th at 10 o'clock. And I guess I'll probably make that a 2-hour meeting as well. So it'd be 10 to 12. But that's so far the winning date. So if people want to say in the meeting, I would, if you could complete it in the next, like,
Yeah.
by 12 on the dot, and then I will schedule it and get it sent out.
And just to say, it's a public meeting, we're welcoming feedback from everybody, and the votes, we have to have a quorum to actually do the vote, and so we need the voting. So everybody's welcome at the meetings to provide verbal feedback, and then when we actually vote the bylaws through, that'll be just the executive appointed current folks on there.
Jen, I'm sorry, I don't understand getting to Google. Could you just tell me the 2 dates and the times?
Gordon, let's connect after the meeting and we can be sure you have all the information you need.
Yeah, there's a
Or
lot of,
Shanda could go into a breakout room with Gordon to go through the possibilities.
yeah, let me,
Do you have a preference, Gordon? Would you like to meet afterwards or go into a breakout room with Shanda?
If I do it now, then we can make a decision on the meeting.
so I think
Okay,
that
sounds good.
that answer means that, yeah, instead of just, okay, so.
Thank you.
Okay, the room is open, so Shanda and Gordon, Godspeed.
God, how do I get there?
I will
Is
see if
there-
I can just manually chuck you in there, but kindly, not Chuck, but a kind.
Thank you.
Yes.
The tenderness.
Thank you all for being here. I'm looking at this group in this room who's hung in through so much of this kind of detail work, and we're working on it.
Can I just reiterate where I think folks said, did everybody have enough time to do the doodle poll? First of all, my brain sometimes has a hard time when people keep talking and doing the thing that we were assigned to do.
Where
Does
are we
anyone
at,
need
Jen,
my-
as far as responses?
I just have to refresh, and then it doodle mocks me by making me wait for forever, and then we have. Oh, we have a good chunk of humans who have completed it, and so far September 12th is still the winning one, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. So do you have something that you wanted to add, Jill? I think we can move forward.
Yeah, I think just wanted to reiterate and maybe ask for someone to make a motion so that we can get the room consensus. Are we saying that what you would like the bylaws to say is that somebody who is going to be chair would have 2 years as vice chair before moving into the chair role, and that we would try to have that succession and time to prepare, but that rather than 1 year, we're saying a total of 4-year commitment in leadership when it starts. Could somebody call that question?
I move to clarify language in the bylaws to include a co-chair term of 2 years rolling into chair position for 2 years following their 2-year stint as co-chair. I'm trying to work up some draft language for you as in between doodle polls and other things, but I think I can write a sentence
Thank you.
for Jen.
Thank you so much, Justin. So Justin is moving to help me out here, Gally. Just brain farted.
No, he's making a motion to
Yes,
adjust
thank you.
adjust the bylaws, and I'd be happy
Yes.
to second that motion.
Okay. Do we have anyone that has objections
Well, is there any discussion around
or any
it?
discussion? Don't have my fancy notes up in front of me, so I appreciate the grace. It was unexpected timing. Yep, they do. Thank you. Okay,
And did we
so
say it was director appointed? Or that was? no,
That
it would
I
just
think will need to be clarified to see if you all
Okay.
we haven't done that historically, so if you all want to have that be a thing moving forward, that would maybe could be part of a different motion, but that will need to be clarified if you all want that or not.
Yeah.
No, it seems like they're already members, right? So if they're
Yes.
already members, they've been
Yes, they
appointed, so
are.
that would be redundant. Okay.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I think we don't need to do a formal vote for each suggestion on the bylaws. It's when we actually adopt the whole bylaws that we need to do formal one, but getting very clear on the language that folks are wanting is super helpful.
Well, and voting, Annette, helps me know that more than the voices that have been speaking are okay with that.
Well, just calling out that
Speak
there's a
on-
motion on the floor, folks, and
Yep.
specific discussion around changing the bylaws to reflect the succession plan.
Yeah. So in regards to your discussion question, Annette, I'm just wondering if, because it is such a big change, that we go ahead and move forward with him. If
course.
anyone else has discussion, please feel free to speak up. Anyone else have comments, questions?
Before we vote, can we have the list of voting members up on
yeah.
the screen, please?
Yes, if I could have maybe like 30 seconds.
Yeah, no worries.
And I
Cool,
think
right
I
here.
tried, while you're doing that 30 seconds,
Actually,
I'll verify.
I've got it on my PowerPoint. I can
Awesome.
just share my
I just think
screen.
that's helpful for folks to have a visual reminder.
While we're doing that really quick, can you all clarify? I did put it in the chat, but I think it got lost. Do we need quorum for this particular vote?
Yeah, we need quorum for all of them, so we'll need to have, which
Okay.
is for right now, we haven't voted on the bylaw version, but I think we're going 50% plus one until for right because of DOJ, so. And it can be in the
that's-
chat or verbal.
Okay.
But actually,
that's-
can you just do it in the chat so I can count easier? That would be fantastic.
Thank you, Jill, for letting me. I was just gonna say it. What are we at? All
Do we have
right.
any-
So,
Charlotte, do we have any folks that are on the phone that may not be able to access the chat?
There's no one on the phone.
last time I looked, I didn't see
Okay.
anyone.
Good deal.
And
Okay.
also too, lastly, Karen and Sandy, if you can decide who's gonna vote, you're both here representing data and eval as the subcommittee chair, but there can only be one vote for the committee, so if you two can just determine who's gonna vote, and then, I don't know if Kelly and Pam, you're here, but Kelly's not, so Pam will be the vote for our lethal meats.
Okay, go for it, Karen.
So just as a reminder, it was opened up and we had a second on it that the chair role would now stand as a 2-year position with the co-chair in a 2-year position. And after that, the co-chair will transition into being the chair for 2 years. And we had a second, it was open for discussion. So giving one more moment, if anyone has anything they want to add, please do that. And then we'll move towards a vote.
I have a question. I think the committee, the work group, is only 7 members, not the executive committee.
Right, I understand that, Gordon, but for the purposes of voting on this particular section, we're gonna do our standard voting rules. So we have quorum sitting in the room, and we're gonna, that particular standard is that 50% plus 1 will count for a vote.
Well,
So this particular section is gonna be handled in that way. We've already worked through all of that.
okay, so this isn't the committee work group. This is the executive committee.
Yeah, we're in an executive subcommittee meeting, so it's our executive members who
Yep.
vote.
Okay. I thought that,
Okay, thank you for asking. Appreciate it. This is a little bit different. All of you did that amazing work. Now we're in the executive process of kind of doing some fine tuning and just making some decisions around some of these big items that a vote would be necessary. So we're going to go ahead and place the vote in the chat. Jen did ask that we keep it in the chat so that we can record it accurately. So if you want to vote yay or nay in agreement with the proposal, that would be fabulous.
Okay, we're good. I mean, other people can still vote if you haven't yet, but we're good. We have the majority.
Okay. So we will go ahead and move forward with that change. And I saw in the chat earlier, it looks like there will be some work to make sure that the verbiage is correct throughout the document, whether or not that means co-chair or vice chair. So those fine details will continue to be worked on. All right. lots of hard work already. Annette, do you want to go ahead and pull? Oh, you have it up. Perfect. Do you want to go ahead and keep moving through?
Oh, sorry, quick question. Did we, there was the question around, the OHA director, and then Jill, you had said that you were wondering if we could have a vote on that. Do we want to do that now? Would there need to be a motion for OHA having to approve people, or are we able to just kind of keep moving forward? I don't want to keep us here, but because that was brought up and we didn't finish it, to close the loop on that.
Well, here's why I would like it. I would love it to be in the minutes, with a vote, if that's possible, because, I frankly, with all of like moving parts, don't know if we added that in or if it had been that way and we're changing it. So, I would love to, so the question is, that I would love a motion for is, do we want to have, to require the OHA director to appoint the chair and co-chair of the full alliance? And a yes vote would be that the OHA chair would be in charge of appointing the OHA director would be in charge of appointing the chair. A no vote would be that the full alliance and the full alliance would elect their own chair and co-chair.
So you would like a motion for that one?
Yeah, and
I don't
Charlotte put it in the chat, some
Yep.
language for it, so that way if somebody would like to make a motion, it's. If you want to, then Charlotte has a language for what that could look like.
Can I ask a question before we throw a motion on the table? So it has not been that way.
Mm-mm.
And so if the director, so is the director only appointing the chair and co-chair at the recommendation of the executive subcommittee?
I think if we were to keep, the director has to approve the chair and the co-chair, then I think we would need to specify that. Right now, it just says that OHA will, or I'm not sure. I think that we would want to specify that if it's not already specified in there.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me if we're gonna vote on our own co-chair and chair, but then the director is going to appoint the chair. So I mean, we can vote for it. I'm just gonna say I'm not in favor of that, because I want us to be able to vote on our own people versus the
I agree,
director who does not know any of us.
Yes.
Putting
I
someone.
agree. I can put a motion forward, Gally, on that one.
Cool. Yeah, motion would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it,
Move
Justin.
to remove references in the bylaws to the director appointing chair and co-chair positions.
And I will second that.
Thank you for that, Justin. Oh, and we have a second. Perfect. You're all making my life so easy. Now, look, I'm going to become a pro today. We'll open that up for discussion. Any comments, questions, ideas, concerns?
Yeah, I think it's just that if we've already, and I have to look back through it, but it looks like because all the member positions are actually approved by the director, that the alliance, we basically make sure that the wording says the alliance will nominate and appoint any of those positions, like subsequent to that, as long as they've been approved as a member, that everything else is done internally. Does that make sense?
And we do say that people's appointments for certain positions are contingent upon whether or not they have membership, like whether or not their membership will last through their term as whatever position they're in. So we do have that in there. So that will,
Yeah.
Justin, that will also help with that. Any other discussions for that motion? Sorry, Charlotte, that was your sentence.
Hey, you're helping me out. I'm not complaining. Yeah, is there any other discussion? Please add. Again, remember, we're going to have it once all these edits are done. We will also have another chance to review this. So just kind of major points here. Okay. If there's no discussion, let's go ahead and vote. Again, let's please place it in the chat, whether yay or nay. In reference to the request for the alliance members to be able to vote in the chair and co-chairs without.
Well, 50% plus one has been done, so it passes for
Perfect.
that to be
Okay.
removed.
Voted, I vote abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Is it okay if you put that in the chat, Gordon, just that way we can track it?
Okay.
Okay, anything else around that before Annette moves us through some more? Also, just what, I'm gonna ask too, and I just want to see how we all want to handle this because we are going to likely have another meeting around this, and we do have some additional agenda items that we need to cover. So just thinking, Annette and Jill and Jen to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think a check-in about, yeah, the nominations and the committees. Maybe we can move to that at 12:40 if we haven't gotten there before. Does that make sense?
I can let whoever's speaking at the time, I'll gently let you know that it's 12:40 at that time.
Okay.
So much.
All right. So we're moving back into terms. And clearly we had some confusion around chair, vice chair. The elected positions, which you may recall, these are like the young adult, the youth, the lived experience positions, healthcare, and university or school provider. Those elected positions can serve up to 3 years. We had to be careful with language because it sort of depends when people get appointed, but they can serve up to 3 years. Subcommittee chairs, those are all of our committees other than executive, are confirmed annually by the subcommittee. There's no term limits on those. And we've added in an option on the executive committee to welcome in a tribal rep if a tribal rep ever wanted to join us in those positions. Okay. Other than that, the executive remains the same. We didn't change the positions. There is, you'll see at the end, that Gordon had asked us about having a more definition around at large. We'll come to that at the end of this conversation. One of the important things about the committees is that they self-select, so people can volunteer for a committee. They forward the recommendations to the executive for approval. And then just clarifying that all of our work groups and advisory groups need to comply with public meeting law. And they do not, but they will not be taking official votes. So you don't need to be worrying about quorum and that kind of thing when you're in a work group.
What was taken out of since the last August 7th, the last bylaws is under elected positions, the alliance chair. What was taken out is pending alliance membership status, and that was taken out for the vice chair also. And I just noted that because that was not noted in the bylaws change from the last bylaws.
I just realized what happened, Gordon. You are looking at a version that we ended our task force meeting with, and then Annette and Jen and I met as we agreed to in that meeting to take a first pass at large definition, and then we were making the recommendation for discussion here on that. There's not version control issues, that's why, and so this piece, as you maybe remember in that task force meeting, we said that there were some pieces from DOJ recommendations that we needed to incorporate, and so that's one of them, that she recommended we remove those words from what we had and changed the definition of quorum from what the group had decided as well.
Well, thank you. I understand that. It was just that it didn't show here that those words had previously been in, and it's usually a red line. It's turned in red and a line's put through it. So I just wanted to note that was a change that from the last meeting we had.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand that.
Thank you.
Great. All
Now,
right.
Non-voting is still in there. And the most recent in this bylaws, it took that out and said that OHA appointed members would vote. So I noted these two.
Yes,
here.
that was something. Jill, do you want to address that? The
So I wonder maybe if you could go, oh yeah, it's on this page. Okay, so around quorum and decision making, there was some volley back and forth with DOJ. So the commitment we made to you all, if you remember, at the last time that this whole subcommittee met, was that we would bring to you things that that OHA was going to be okay with, so that you weren't voting in something or bringing it to the full alliance and OHA would come back and say DOJ said we can't do this. So everything we've talked about in the last 5 minutes or so is in those categories that that we had as a work group made recommendations for what we wanted quorum to be. And DOJ said that the most what did she say? She made it like the safest definition. That those weren't the words that she said, but that was like the intent of the word. Hi, Mateo. And one of the questions around who can vote and who can't vote was about OHA and whether OHA can vote. And she said if the director appoints OHA people to be on a committee, that OHA can vote. They have full membership rights and responsibilities. And so we came back and said, okay, then one thing that we want to do is shrink the number of recommendation of OHA people on the committee. And so instead of having all OHA coordinators, Taylor, Shanda, Roger, Deb, me, Laura Chisholm, Chelsea Holcomb, having this big list of OHA people, that we would shrink it way down to just 2 OHA people that were official letter carrying members of the alliance. So as to mitigate that potential bias, because why would you vote to advise yourself on something that seems weird? And so that was one strategy. So the recommendation that we will be giving to Sajal also, and that we have already asked in the cleanup membership list task, is that I'm still a member of the alliance, and someone from public health will also be a member. It will either be Catherine Bennett, who's Taylor and Megan's manager, or Taylor or Megan. One of those 3 humans will be the OHA public health rep. But because we can still vote, one of the questions that we need you all to vote on is whether or not to remove OHA from the executive committee as official executive committee members, so that we would always come and show up to these meetings, but that we wouldn't vote at these meetings because we wouldn't be executive members. So one is a strategy for the full alliance meeting to just shrink the number of OHA humans that could vote if they wanted to. Second strategy is to ask you to consider removing OHA positions from the executive committee to mitigate that piece. And then the third strategy is that as long as I am in this role, I will vote abstain, because why would I vote to give myself a pep talk or advice?
Those
So
are a lot of options. Jill, do you mind typing those out in the chat so people have something to reference? It sounds like you're asking for another vote in regards to this.
Well, I think it's later, but we can do it now. That makes good sense. So remove OHA positions on the executive subcommittee.
And also just to add to that, so in addition to Jill saying that like OHA to not advise themselves, that was also a request from this committee previously, and also the work group of not wanting OHA to vote. So it's been asked for by the majority that OHA would not vote in these spaces. So that's another reason why that's on there. In addition to Jill saying that, is that folks have the majority have asked for that as well.
Okay, and then somewhere else in the bylaws, I believe there's a statement about OHA voting. And it doesn't, at one point it said they would vote to abstain, but that was taken out. And
Yeah, and that's because when we ran it by DOJ, they said you can't require somebody who has full voting rights. You can't require somebody who has full voting rights to abstain.
right. And
So we removed it after the task force met. We removed it when we aligned DOJ recommendations.
okay.
So the current ask right now is that either we would continue to function how we have, and Jill would continue to abstain from voting. Or someone could make the motion to remove OHA positions on the executive subcommittee. And then I believe you gave another option, Jill, which is where the amount of OHA staff that would be in attendance as an executive subcommittee would be smaller.
That's
Did I
already
hear that correctly?
That's already reflected in the bylaws.
Okay,
That
perfect.
was naming a strategy that we put
Okay.
in.
Now, I
So
just
it sounds like,
want to finish my comment that I don't have any problem with this. We're keeping non-voting on this page, but finding the place in this bylaws that says they are voting members. And that's
yeah,
somewhere
I think,
in this issue.
yeah, we can make sure that the language is consistent throughout for sure, Gordon. We'll
Yeah,
do
just
that.
depends on how people
Yep.
vote.
Mhm.
So once we have
So
it.
just gonna leave that table open for a minute. If there's anyone that wanted to potentially make a motion, then you can. And if not, we will continue to move forward and it will remain as has been.
Can I ask a question? Jill, would if this group voted to remove, well, if we voted that OHA can attend but they cannot vote, is that something that DOJ is even, because I heard you say that DOJ feels that people who are appointed should have a right to vote. So
Yep, but the difference is that I would be just like Mary Massey in this meeting, who is a member of the Alliance, but not an official member of the executive. Therefore, she's not voting when we vote on these things today.
got it.
And that yeah, and we aren't appointed to the executive, just to the Alliance. The Alliance bylaws has those positions carved out. And I think it was probably to get OHA staff to attend in the beginning, would be my guess. So.
The only place that we're required to have OHA is per SB 707, which says that they have to be like the membership, but that's like the only kind of pointed out required place that OHA has to be.
So we're looking for a motion, if anyone would like to, about removing OHA from the executive list.
Okay. We'll move forward then and leave as is. If someone changes their mind and wants to make a motion, you're more than welcome to let us know. In the meantime, we'll keep moving forward.
Great. So talking about quorum, are we ready to talk about quorum again? Yep. Okay. Talking about quorum, 50% of members plus one. In practical ways, Jen and I will always keep the list of all of our appointed members so that we're very clear on how many there are, and we'll be responsible, staff will be responsible for being sure those counts are in accordance with that. For our subcommittees, though, we wanted to try and make it a little easier to get to a quorum, and so we could have more flexible groups. And so we defined it there as 3 voting members, which must include either the chair or vice chair of the subcommittee. We also just clarified a couple things about the executive committee. They have the authority to recommend appointment and removal of members and can make time-sensitive recommendations to OHA between quarterly meetings without sending it back to the full alliance for a decision.
I just want to name that part of it is how we have been practicing. DOJ recommended that we put it in and call it out so that the full committee, the full alliance knows that they gave this subcommittee that power.
Yeah.
I guess I would not put it in the bylaws that they can abstain and leave that up to the people at OHA and the understanding that our director has with the people that are coming on from OHA. I think that's a red flag to say, and they can abstain is sort of a problem
All right.
in our bylaws.
All right. So the next bylaw area change, and this is really straightforward. This is us clarifying that the alliance is indeed the legislatively appointed advisory to SB 707. And the other big change throughout is in our previous bylaws, we talked about we will make policy, we will be advocates, we're going to move it forward. And it's every place that policy is mentioned, we're very clear in the bylaws now to say, make policy recommendations to OHA. All right. Wrong direction again. Where am I? Okay, so there's two areas that were unresolved by the task force. And we just dealt with one of them, which was the OHA member. And the second one was that in our work group, there was one person who really wanted us to further define what at-large meant. And there was not consensus in the work group around that. And Jill and Jen and I did some work on trying to further clarify at large and really found the definitions did not clarify it further. And I guess as staff, my recommendation would be to leave it, that the idea of an at-large position is that it's an open position for someone to fill. But I also, so that's my recommendation as staff, but I also know that there has been a one of the members of our work group has really wanted that to be defined further. Jill?
Jill?
Oh, I can't find it fast enough. I want to add to the context table that one of the concerns that we were trying to address by that definition of at-large position was the wanting it to be clear that we're wanting to not have folks, members on the alliance, and especially on the executive, more than one folk from any one entity, like like Lines for Life, for example, because they're such a large organization and are such good supporters of the alliance that sometimes it means that they're heavy on representation in decision-making rooms. And so because we were struggling so much to define what at-large meant or didn't mean without being exclusionary, because any way we tried to put it, it made it sound like it actually, I think, did the opposite of what that intent was. And so we added one sentence, and if somebody else can find it faster than me. On the clean copy, it's on page 2 of the bylaws, and it says the alliance membership recommendations will include no more than one voting member per organization or OHA division. And so that was so that on the full alliance, there wouldn't be more than one member. And that doesn't, of course, mean that that Lines for Life can't send 10 good humans to do good work in all the places. It means that there's only one vote among those, just like we have lots of affiliates and people who are involved in the work that aren't members.
You know, those would be affiliates, those extra people. Right,
Yeah, and affiliates don't vote. They just attend.
very good. Well, and the other piece, just a short note, is that it was to see all of the people are representing some group, even lived experience, etc. And having somebody from the community, which is actually the definition, I believe, of at large, that isn't connected. And I saw a selling point in the last thing that said, well, there probably isn't anybody on the Alliance that isn't of lived experience or some other group. And the point is that I'm in all of those, rural and lived experience in all of those, but I'm not representing them. And it's having a member that is not representing any kind of stakeholder that has to speak to the people that they're representing, or even lived experience. I have lived experience, but I'm not representing the lived experience group. So that was my point.
Callie?
I'm
Charlotte, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate what you're saying, Gordon. And it's the first time I've heard the perspective on it. So I appreciate you sharing it. I would hesitate to believe that we can come to a space and not somehow in some way represent all those different identities that we hold. So, someone had commented, I think there's been some comments, just to leave it at large, it's leaving it very open and I just wonder if that makes sense because it's impossible to say that someone's going to come to that space and not have that somehow impact their beliefs or their thoughts or how they have an interaction. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, however the decision is made, representing somebody is like if I'm representing the vets or I'm representing lived experience. So I'm speaking to that. I've got millions of experiences in me. And
Yeah.
that's
Thank-
the point.
Thank you, Gordon. Did you have something to add, Gally?
I wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd like to make a motion that we leave the at-large undefined as it is currently in the bylaws.
Do we have a second for that motion?
Second, Justin seconds.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, let's move it to a vote. So voting members, which are up on the screen, if you can vote yay or nay in the chat specifically so we can record it, that would be great. And we have a vote to proceed with that.
Yep. It's the motion as Gally voiced it has passed.
Yes, thank you. You're on mute, Annette.
Believe it or not, those were the big issues in the bylaws. And I guess that's why I wanted to just pause back to find out, especially from voices we haven't heard from and people who haven't been here for a while, just really want to hear, are there any, when you were reading those bylaws, were there any things that you were jumping out to you or concerns that we didn't capture that we should be capturing? And it's really okay if there aren't, but I just want to create the space. All right.
I
would
appreciate
just
that,
say I
Annette.
really
Thank you.
appreciate all that work, all the work that went into that. And, I think I said this at the beginning that writing bylaws is always an exercise in providing detail and then trying to get details out because you don't want to paint yourself into a corner. That's a good way to stall out work, and these, like, you create this and then it should sit in a corner. And
Yes.
it's just in the background. It's just the background piece, because the
Yeah.
work is the work, and that's the part we have to focus on.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing, Justin. And I also want to say I really appreciate it. Makes me not sit in that awkward silence, right? All of the answers in the chat, nothing for me. They're like, don't sit there in awkward silence.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add, Annette, before we move on to the next section?
Oh, just to say that it's been a really nice work group, and it's been a lot of time this
Mhm.
summer. And like John Seeley's not here, he's been part of the work group. Gordon has, and we've also actually had a couple of people who even aren't members who've been part of it. So there's a lot of people who care about the Alliance and the work that we're doing to move things forward. So I can move forward if you need. I see Gordon's hand is up.
Yeah, I would share these with you directly. There were a couple of things that were added that bring up a big question for me. And so I could quickly do that now, or I'll do that with you, Annette, and we'll take it from there.
Let's have you go ahead and do it at the next section if you're okay with that, because we're actually at the time that was defined for us to make sure that we fit in the other sections. Does that work,
That works.
Annette,
That works for
for
me.
you as well? Okay, perfect. Gordon, thank you so much for your flexibility in that. We really appreciate it.
Gordon, will
And
you
just
include
want to
me?
call out like how great you do it looking through those details. So want to honor that.
Gordon, will you include me in your communication to Annette, just so I can keep tracking too?
And Jen.
Okay, so
All right. So we are at opening nominations for executive committee positions that are open. And there are currently what's open is one at-large position. We have one nominee for that. We have Craig Leitz. We have the vice chair, and we have one nominee for that, which is Don Erickson. And we have a lived experience. And then the big gap we have is our youth young adult. Unfortunately, we have one nomination for that, which is Aaron. And we actually don't have other youth or young adult members right now that could qualify to be in that position. And so that's going to be something we'll have to attend to as we get ourselves restarted again, is to pull in some youth. And the upper age for young adult is 25. So just wanted to check in and say that what we're going to do is put these nominations forward to the full voting alliance list, see if there's anyone else who wants to be nominated for positions, and we'll actually vote on these positions at the September meeting. And my God, should officially be able to welcome folks onto the executive committee. Jill.
I'm just wondering, do you have a PowerPoint with this on, or a way we could see positions and people nominated? And it's okay if you don't. I stopped your screen sharing when we were doing that last group discussion, and so I didn't want that to be.
I didn't, but I can put it in the chat real quickly if.
Are we opening up all positions to start fresh with the 3-year thing, or we
No.
decided not to do that? Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. I had some notes on it. I think,
Annette, it was part of your presentation when it looked at voting members of the executive committee.
Yeah, if you want, I do know, I'm just gonna put it in the chat.
my understanding from our notes, and that was that an email was going to be sent out in the next week with the actual positions, who's currently sitting there that has been nominated, and asking for additional nominations and then to be turned in by a certain point. Does that sound right?
That is absolutely right.
Okay.
So it's really 4 positions that are open: at large, youth, lived experience, and vice chair. And we have nominations for all of those categories right now, except for lived experience. Jill.
And I just wanted to call out in the bylaws the process for electing new executive members, just in case people are like, okay, what's the process? And it is on between page 5 and 6 of the clean copy. It says, so these are not the chairs, because chairs of subcommittees are just automatically on the alliance, on the executive subcommittee. These are the kind of called out positions. And the bylaws say any current member of the alliance may nominate themselves for any of the elected positions. And then it says any nomination will be reviewed by the current executive subcommittee prior to a vote by the full alliance. And that we usually do that voting. Oh, it's doing all the track changes in my copy and paste. That's annoying and rude and uncalled for. And so anyone can nominate. The executive subcommittee reviews the nominations and brings them to the full committee for vote. And so in the very complicated timeline of how to reboot everything, these nominated, if we're putting it back out for nominations for others to be nominated for those positions, then we would need to add the review of have the timeline sunset and review those before the quarterly meeting as well.
Clarify what that means for me, Jill.
That
Sorry.
means that at our September, it really means that, so we have 2 options. One, we can say that nominations close September 11 before our September 12 special executive session, which only gives 5 days for more nominations. It might make sense to do that in this moment in time because many of these nominations have been sitting there for over a year. If you remember, we never voted this slate of executive members in. So just naming that, I don't think that that's a bad decision to make if you all make that decision. Second option would be that that we will not be voting in new executive members into those positions at the September 27th quarterly meeting, because we haven't had time to open for nominations and have the executive review them.
So I guess I was assuming that until the bylaws passed by the full alliance that we were oh, well, I think your proposal about the 5 days, Jill, my 2 cents as staff would be that would be how we approach it, is open it up for that week, bring it back when we meet together at the executive.
I think it's really important that we get to vote in September, because if folks remember, we didn't get to vote last September. And a lot of folks in this room have waited very patiently for that vote.
Yeah, and I just want to say there's yeah, and I think it's incredible, given everything we've done together, that folks are still excited and interested in serving. And I think it's really an important, it's because people care so much about this issue. So
Do we know what subcommittees are returning and their chair and co-chairs?
No, that's going to be a discussion that this group will have. If not later today, then the extra meeting that we'll have.
Okay, so that will be brought up and dealt with at the Alliance meeting so we can finally get that rolling.
Yeah, everything that's decided upon with this group will be passed on to the full Alliance at the quarterly.
Fantastic.
So is the purpose in this particular agenda item, folks, just to let people know kind of current nominations and the need for additional nominations for those positions if people are interested? Is that?
Yes, and
Okay.
just to be sure, we're trying to be as just as transparent as
Fair and
possible, so
transparent.
folks know it was a long time ago that, and so in case there's new interest or, you know, like, I don't know if Marianne, like we had a member who suddenly was like, I really want to be part of the leadership group, and they hadn't had a chance to do that before. There also are other great leadership opportunities. A number of our committees have chairs transitioning out that we're going, you know, and that's another great leadership opportunity. Like our schools committee in particular, our workforce committee. Yeah.
So I'd really encourage folks, because I think one of the things that we've learned over the past many years is in order to get new folks in these roles, we really have to do personal invitations to folks to consider being involved. So if you in this group know of people who might be a good fit or are interested, you know, please send an email to folks and making an ask for them to consider. That's how we have been so lucky to get many of you who are in this room, that we've made those personal connections with people and been able to like get other folks in the room. So if you have any ideas, please, we need your help to reach out to folks.
Has the LGBT and the equity become subcommittees, or are they still advisory?
That'll be something that we'll talk about when we talk about the subcommittee piece in a little bit. It's part of a larger conversation. Just to not move away from this nominations piece right now.
Do we have anything else pending around that information? Like, am I missing something? So it sounds like right now the email will go out. It sounds like we're in agreement that everyone will either self-nominate or nominate someone by the 12th, is my understanding. Did I catch that correctly, Jill? Not, yes, thank you. Perfect. And yes, Michelle, did you have a question? By the 12th, 11th? 11th. Okay, thank you. My brain heard the 12th. So if everyone can just make sure to please be timely in that response or nomination, that would be wonderful. And then I think that was all that was in that section. Would we be moving forward to have Jen cover the next section then of the agenda? Okay, Jen, it's all you.
And with that, I know that it's important to talk about, and also with the time check of having 10 minutes left, I just wanted to see Annette and Charlotte, how you two feel. This seems like it might be a bigger conversation. Do you think it's okay to start it if we don't finish it, or should we hold off so that way we don't have to feel rushed going through it and we can talk about it at our next meeting on the 12th to kind of like really dig in and
Are you
think
talking
about
about the committees?
yeah, the committees, because I know like we're waiting to hear, like we heard from Karen and Sandy, but I don't know like if, so we don't have
I
like,
actually heard, I think we could, Jen, my 2 cents would be, let's get it started.
Okay,
Let's talk
cool.
about, I think, the 2 committees that we're wondering about transitioning.
Okay, cool, sweet. So with that, Annette and Charlotte, thank you so much for the agenda with the notes on it. It's very helpful. So as was hinted at earlier, with moving forward with some of the changes and everything that's going on, our committee structure was reviewed. And we have, as staff and kind of like the leadership team, have some recommendations and some questions about which ones could move forward and where some changes could happen. And the 2 that were up for discussion, I've talked with Liz a little bit about transitions of care, and she was hoping to kind of bring some ideas to this subcommittee, and then also data and eval, where Karen and Sandy had some thoughts about moving forward and what the work could look like in the future. Annette, you said that you heard from Karen and Sandy about, I think that I saw a work group was potentially suggested
Well,
instead of being a
let's-
regular committee?
Let's go through one by one and just,
Yeah.
like, I'd love to hear from Karen and Sandy, kind of your thinking about data and evaluation and whether this is a group that has the engagement and we need to keep moving forward, or the other thought we had is possibly to make it into more of a learning community or work group. And not just I mean, anyone here can talk, but Karen and Sandy are most intimately familiar with it.
I don't know, Sandy, I could let you go first if you have thoughts on this. I have a few thoughts.
Well, it's been a while since I've been dialed in on the conversation, so correct me if I'm missing anything, Karen. But our thinking was that that this group could be of support to the to the alliance as a whole. In terms of data discussions and understanding what some of the other committees are interested in seeing in the way of data collection, what they're interested in, and how we can be a support to that.
Yeah, I can put sort of like our goals for the year. I'm gonna put it in the chat as soon as I find it, but really it seems like you know, the data and evaluation committee, it seems like really there are so many people who work at OHA and other organizations and institutions around suicide prevention, who are tasked with doing a lot of work around data and evaluation for the committee that and in the past, I think we've potentially been sort of recreating the wheel because there's already professionals who are doing this work. So I feel like sort of looking back at what our role is, which is really to support the Alliance and provide some like the evaluation perspective on the work that the Alliance is doing and potentially advise the other committees. So it you know, we've had these are our priority areas and we've been sort of working on stuff, but a lot of it that the work that we do has been responding to requests and they don't come in very much. And so I do think that you know, I'm happy to just be a work group since yeah, so I don't know what other people are thinking, but a lot of this work seems to be like something that can be requested. As far as the developing a data equity framework, again, that was something that OHA has been doing internally, and we had conversations around why don't we just sort of like vote to adopt what what the work that OHA has already done around this. And so that sort of seems like maybe we need to have more of a role of reviewing things and providing advice and maybe having a position on something, but not actually creating things or producing things. And if other people have thoughts on that. I mean, if the other Alliance members really feel the need for more activity in this area or
I just
I
wanted
see
to,
Jen's hand up. Oh, go for it, Jen.
thanks. I just wanted to say if it does become a work group like an ad hoc, so that doesn't mean that we would never have any input on things that come out from OHA. OHA reports like the annual YSIP report and the workforce report, and then also the transitions of care report. That's not called that, but the hospital survey one. As those things come out, it seems like if we were a work group, the individuals who have shared interest in wanting to provide feedback and to work on that would be able to be called and come together, kind of like the Avengers, and then like provide their stuff, get all their stuff together, and then send it to the executive to send off. So it would more just kind of be on an as needed basis instead of meeting every month. And we would still be able to partner with OHA around our data, the data presentations that they give us. So by data and eval stepping down as a subcommittee and becoming an as needed work group doesn't mean that this work goes away. It just changes the frequency of how often they meet.
The evaluation and data avengers worker. I think that seems like a fine idea, and I know that the members of the committee have really appreciated being invited by OHA to participate in things where they feel like they need a broader voice around data and evaluation related to suicide prevention. So I would imagine that could still continue, and we would be interested in that, and just having it be sort of as an odd as needed basis, because we are, a lot of those of us who are on that committee are sort of constantly doing the data and evaluation already as part of our own roles. And so I like the idea of us still being able to come together and talk and provide feedback, but the work is already happening outside of the committee.
I guess.
Yeah, kind of my thought had been to do, you could even do like informal quarterly evaluation data learning community or something, because it's been a nice place to bring people together, but it has been hard to get real engagement actually in some of the questions the evaluation group has put out to the Alliance. It's just not where people's heads are, I think. Gally?
I wanted to make a motion. I think what Karen is saying makes a lot of sense. We're hearing it right from the, one of the leaders of that group. And so I would like to make a motion that the data and eval committee be moved from a committee to a work group. And have that reflected in our bylaws.
Do we have a second for that?
We'll
Second
have a
motion.
comment or a comment question after this.
Absolutely. So we have a second. Go ahead and open that up, Justin, or sorry, Donald. Don. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Was
I just
that
had
Don or Justin that said they had a comment? Sorry.
I think it was Dustin, but I also did, but go ahead, Dustin, please.
Okay.
Yeah,
Justin.
It was that in the bylaws that the work groups, advisory work groups, are established by the subcommittees and not by the executive, right?
The
So is
executive is a
that
subcommittee. So I think that this would be able to
okay?
do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the voting
Thank
power
you.
we have right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Voting
Yeah,
power.
the
Okay.
only thing that's not
Just-
the
just
Alliance as a
checking.
whole is now considered the committee, and then all the other things are subcommittees. So
Yeah,
it's
other than the fact that I'm annoyed that those
Yeah.
work groups have to follow public meeting laws, I'm fine. I think that's insane, but what do I know?
a second. So the motion
Okay. And
by
then Don.
by Justin.
Just real quick, Charlotte. I was just curious if in the review of all of the sort of current changes or expectations, of our group or anything else, if we're going to be asked to produce any sort of data related to our function or goals as the Alliance, is OHA going to request that, or is it?
I responded to that. If the in the chat, if the Alliance is serving as the advisory committee for the YSIP has a contracted evaluator. And so I would imagine that the contracted evaluator would be the entity that might look at that or do any sort of evaluation function, just for like looking at what's going on with the Alliance. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, Karen. Thank you.
And I also was looking at Jill's comment that OHA also produces, they're legislatively required to produce a report to the legislature. Is that correct, Jill?
Yeah, that's correct. And so I have requirements for what I have to report to the legislature. And so there would be moments where I would ask, and we do ask committees to report back on your progress, but the data piece of it is not necessarily Like, I think it goes the other direction, that we have in our contract with UO that the Alliance can ask for data and research questions to be answered through our contract with the UO lab.
And UO is the entity that does, really does quarterly web surveys of the Alliance, or annual? Is it an annual web survey of the Alliance?
That we have as Alliance staff doing. Yeah,
Oh.
we have another meeting scheduled, so we could also, naming that if we feel rushed, we can start the next meeting with this same discussion if we wanted to.
So I'm curious, Jill, about trying to formulate my question in my head and say it at the same time. So with this move for the data and evaluations subcommittee to move to a work group, whatever that produces, let's say over a year, would we not want to capture some of that information in the report that you sent to the legislature? So it could open up a pathway of communication back to OHA from the Alliance. And it would be the Alliance that would recommend that information to OHA, correct? Okay.
So I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. We are at our time for our meeting, and so just kind of want to ask how we want to proceed with this. Do we want to continue the vote, or does it sound like there's more discussion that wants to be had around this? Any opinions?
Do you want to like just roll this over to the next meeting, and maybe OHA, you all can think a little bit about like who is tasked, and AOCMHP, who is tasked with evaluating the work of the Alliance? Okay.
Okay, sounds good. So the motion that we had on the table, after discussion, we're pausing that and we're going to roll over the discussion to our next meeting. Also asking for OHA to kind of identify a little bit more about that process and what their needs are, so that we can make sure that we're taking that into consideration as we further this discussion. So again, just want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for all of your hard work that you gave today. Thank you for being willing to fill out that doodle poll and add some more time to getting this process moving forward so that we can do some voting at our quarterly meeting. I hope to see you all there, either in person or virtually, and hope that you enjoy some of the last minute sunshine that we may have.